Good morning again, guys. All right, to continue on with our gardening theme from yesterday, I thought it'd be helpful for us to read a little story about the life cycle of a flower. This gardening unit is one of our last things we do in the year in first grade. So I figured these skills will help you in case you want to help your parents garden and apply what you're learning to your backyard, just like I was doing yesterday. All right, so here we go. The life cycle of a flower. What is a flower? A flower is a part of a flowering plant. Like all plants, flowering plants are living things. They make their own food from air, light, and water. Flowering plants also make seeds. Each flowering plant has at least one or more flowers. The flowers are the plant's reproductive parts. Flowering plants and their colorful flowers have been on Earth for more than 100 million years. A flower close up. All flowering plants have the same parts: roots, stems, leaves, and flowers. Each part has a job to do. All the parts must work together to help the plant survive. Leaves absorb or take in sunlight and use it to make food for the plant. Many flowering plants have only one flower, but others have many flowers. The petals are often brightly colored. The stem holds the leaves upright. It also carries water and nutrients from the roots to the leaves and flowers. Roots hold the plants firmly in the soil and take in water and nutrients. The roots also store food. Fantastic flowers. There are more than 275,000 different species or types of flowering plants on Earth. Their flowers come in different shapes, sizes, and colors. Some flowers are tiny, whereas others grow to be more than 12 inches across. These pages show flowers of different colors, shapes, and sizes. Where do flowers grow? Flowering plants grow in many habitats. A habitat is a place where plants and animals live. It receives specific amount of sunlight and rainfall and has a certain type of soil. Rainforests, grasslands, and deserts are examples of habitats. Suited to survive. Flowering plants are adapted or suited to their habitats. They grow almost everywhere on Earth. In extremely cold areas such as the Arctic, flowering plants have small leaves covered in fine hairs. The hairs help hold in heat. In deserts where it is hot and dry, flowering plants often store water in their stems. Desert plants usually have tiny leaves or no leaves at all because plants lose water through their leaves. By having no leaves, desert plants lose less water. Living in water. Aquatic flowering plants, such as water lilies, often live on or near edges of lakes, ponds, and streams. These plants usually have long underwater stems. Long stems allow the plant's leaves flowers to grow above the water's surface. The stems and leaves contain many tiny pockets of air that help them to float. Pretty little water lily. Let's see. Sorry, gotta get this way. So, what is a life cycle? Every living thing goes through a set of changes called a life cycle. A flowering plant begins its life as a seed. The seed grows and changes until it becomes mature or fully grown. Mature flowers are then able to make seeds. When each seed starts to grow, a new life cycle begins. Lifespan. A flowering plant's lifespan is the length of time it lives. Different plants have different lifespans. Annuals complete their life cycles in just 1 year. Biennials live at least 2 years. In their first year, they grow only leaves. Their flowers grow in the second year. Perennials live 3 years or more. There are many flowering plants that live 20 to 30 years. Others can live hundreds of years. A flowering plant's life cycle. A flowering plant's life cycle begins inside a seed. The seed germinates or starts to grow. As the seed begins growing, small seed leaves appear at the soil's surface. The seed leaves make and store food for the growing seedling or young plant. As the seedling grows, a bud forms and slowly opens. The seedling's true leaves or adult leaves also start to grow, and the seed leaves fall off. The flower is now mature and can make seeds. The seeds will become new flowering plants. Here's a little picture of the life cycle. All right, growing from seeds. The seeds of flowering plants can be many sizes, colors, and shapes. Some flowers contain many seeds, whereas others contain only a few seeds. Inside a seed, each seed contains an embryo or a tiny unformed flower. A seed also holds food for the embryo. The embryo is protected by a hard outer covering called a seed coat. So when you press seeds and they're nice and hard, that's the seed coat on the outside. The embryo begins growing when it starts to take in water through its seed coat. Germination can take 7 to 120 days. Most seeds, including the sunflower seed below, germinate in 15 to 30 days. Taking their time, seeds may not start growing right away. They need a certain amount of space, sunlight, and water. Many seeds remain dormant or inactive until conditions are right for them to begin growing. Seeds are often dormant for winter and they begin growing in the spring. Some seeds can stay dormant for years. So here's the little life cycle of the seed down here. So it says the tiny embryo absorbs water and swells until it cracks and pushes through its seed coat. The young roots grow downward into the soil to find water and support the young seedling as it grows. As the roots continue growing, the seedling pushes it up through the soil. The seed leaves are small at this stage. The seed coat falls around from the seedling. The stem of the young sunflower grows stronger and taller. The roots continue to grow underground. Seedlings. After a seed germinates and its seed leaves appear above the soil surface, the small plant is called a seedling. During the summer, the seedling stem becomes longer and grows upright. The seed leaves make wider and longer. They become food for the seedling by absorbing sunlight. As the seed leaves continue to grow, they often become bright green. Seed leaves. Different seed leaves have different shapes. Some seedlings have long and narrow seed leaves. The seed leaves of other seedlings are round or heart-shaped. Seed leaves often fall off once the true leaves have developed. Using the sun's energy. This is an important part. Both seedlings and adult flowering plants use energy from the sun to make food. Making food from sunlight is called photosynthesis. The word photosynthesis comes from two words, photo, which means light, and synthesis, which means combination. Taking it in, flowering plants start making food as soon as their leaves are large enough to absorb sunlight. To make food, a plant's leaves take in energy from the sun. They also take in carbon dioxide from the air. The plant uses the sun's energy to combine the water and carbon dioxide to make food. The food the plant creates is called glucose. You guys may have heard that word before. Glucose is a type of sugar. Okay, so here's a picture of it over here. So the sunlight is looking down on the flower. So while making the food, the leaves release oxygen into the air. The leaves also release tiny droplets of water called water vapor. The leaves take in the carbon dioxide from the air. A mature flower. A flowering plant is mature when it is finished growing. A flower opens when the plant is ready to reproduce or make seeds. Flowers are the reproductive parts of flowering plants. Mature flowers are often brightly colored. They can be different shapes as well. Some, such as lilies, shown above, are very large with wide tops and narrow bottoms. Others are very small and grow in tight clusters or groups. Different species of mature flowering plants have different sizes and shapes. Some are long, narrow, and slender, whereas others are wide, round, and the stems of most mature flowers are sturdy and upright. Male and female parts. But you guys didn't know there was boy and girl flowers. Male or flowering plants reproduce by making seeds. Mature flowers have male and female parts that produce seeds. A stamen is the male part of the flower. Some flowers contain one stamen, whereas others contain many. The pistil is made up of the female parts of the flower. It has a stigma at its tip. Ovals need pollen. Each stamen produces sticky grains of pollen. Pollen contains male cells. A pistil contains ovals or female cells. The ovals are inside of the ovary at the bottom of the pistil. The ovals need pollen from a stamen in order to become seeds. Pollination. Flowers cannot make seeds unless they are pollinated. During pollination, pollen is moved from a flower's stamen to a flower's pistil. There are three main types of pollination: cross-pollination, self-pollination, and wind pollination. For cross-pollination, most flowers need pollen from other flowers of the same species to land on their pistils. The movement of pollen from one flower to another is called cross-pollination. Pollen is moved in many ways. For example, animals such as birds and insects carry pollen on their bodies as they travel from flower to flower. In self-pollination, some flowers are able to pollinate themselves. During self-pollination, pollen moves from the stamen to the pistil of the same flower. Flowers that self-pollinate have male and female parts that are close together, so the pollen can move easily from the stamen to the pistil. In wind pollination, some flowers, including the ragweed above, are pollinated by wind. Wind sweeps pollen off of these flowers and carries it to other flowers. Wind pollination flowers have millions of microscopic or extremely tiny pollen grains. These flowers seldom have nectar. All right, getting noticed. Flowers that need pollinators to pollinate are usually brightly colored and smell sweet. Bright colors and sweet scents let pollinators know that a flower contains pollen or nectar to eat them. Sweet smells. The scents of flowers attracts many pollinators. Flowers that open up at night often have very strong scents. The strong scents these flowers give off help dark insects and find the flowers. Help insects find the flowers in the dark. So you guys can read. You can pause these parts. I'm gonna try and make the book go faster so I don't get cut off recording. So you guys can read these parts on your own if you want. Just pause the screen. All right, making seeds. Pollen must land on a flower's stigma to begin its journey to the ovary, where it would fertilize the ovals. Once an oval is fertilized, a flower can make seeds. The flower goes through a series of changes as the seed grows. So down the pollen tube. After a pollen tube lands on a flower stigma, a hair-like tube called a pollen tube grows downward until it reaches the ovary. Pollen travels down the pollen tube into the ovary. The pollen fertilizes the ovals so they can become seeds. Once the pollen fertilizes the ovals, the flower no longer needs to attract pollinators. It keeps only the parts it needs. The flower's petals fade and then fall off. The stamens also wither and fall away. The ovary grows around the seeds. From flower to fruit, the ovary grows and swells as the seeds ripen or mature. It becomes tough and thick to protect growing seeds. The ovary is called a fruit. When it is fully developed and ripe, the fruit contains the seeds for flowering a plant. Spreading seeds. All right, once seeds are ripe, they must be dispersed or moved to new spots so they have enough room to grow. If a seed drops near other flowers, it might not have enough space for its roots and leaves to spread out. Different seeds are dispersed in different ways. So they can use waterways, which it says water lilies and other aquatic flowering plants have small seeds that float to new growing spots. Water lilies have seeds that are enclosed in small cases of jelly. The jelly helps the seeds float away in a lake or a pond. Okay, so I'm going to stop there just because I don't want to get cut off. There can be animal carriers. So some flowers rely on animals to spread their seeds. When a squirrel eats a seed, the seed is carried to a new place in the animal's body. The seed is then released when an animal goes to the bathroom and it begins to grow. They can blow in the wind. So the wind also disperses the seeds of many flowers. They can use parachutes. So the seeds of a milkweed, showed to the right here, are attached to clusters of silky hairs. As the seeds float away in the breeze, these hairs act like parachutes and they drop to new spots. Dropping off. Some seeds are self-dispersed. They simply fall or pop out of flowers that have dried out and land in soil beneath. So these are, you just have to name one way in our questions of spreading seeds. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways on this page, just one way. So I'm going to skip through the end of this part of the book because I think I hit all of the questions, but you guys are welcome to go back and read these last few pages. I just get cut off at a certain point in time for recording, so I don't want you guys to miss out on the beginning to help you with your lesson, okay? So this book you can go read on Epic, The Life Cycle of a Flower, those last couple pages, and then your assignment for today is posted on Dojo. So everybody have an awesome weekend, and I can't wait to read what you guys learned about the life cycle of a flower. See you guys later.